I've been meditating on peace in my own prayer, and so I just want to pose a couple questions for you at the beginning, and then we'll revisit them at the end. So this one should be obvious, but if I was offering, would you take a little more peace in your life? I'll take that laugh as yes. We had a kid at the 5 o'clock. Yes! I'm like, right on. Me too. So I just ask you, when I say peace, what comes to your mind? If I had you write down on a test, what's the definition of peace? Think about what you would put. And if I had to ask you yes or no on that test, am I at peace in my life right now? Would you check yes, no, or working on it? And then if I had, okay, why? Put the reasons why you lose your peace. What are those reasons? What robs you of your peace? What takes that away from you? And then explain for me if that's a good reason or not. I could give you a long laundry list, which you're about to get in my own life. And then for each of those reasons that you lose your peace, are those good reasons to lose your peace? What is peace? Where does it come from? Well, I think anybody would say, yeah, I'd take some more peace. If you're serving it up, I'll take it. But what's funny is you walk through the Mall of America, or you walk down the street, or you see people online, you can see it in their face. There's a genuine lack of peace in people's life. There is on people's faces, and I experienced that in my own life. And what you see on their faces is kind of like either they're trying to numb it out, I'm going to put my earbuds in, or I'm going to do something so that I don't have to think about it because it's uncomfortable, or they're just very clearly anxious. And when I'm talking about anxiety, I'm not necessarily talking about clinical anxiety. That's related, but I'm talking more on the spiritual front. There's this, our soul is unsettled. I'm not at peace. And I think to an extent we all experience that. Everybody wants it, but I would say a lot of people are, working on it category, myself included. Here's my answer. Here's what I would have put on my test. It's like leaning. Literally the motion to lean. What am I leaning on for my peace? What in my life am I placing as the utmost importance to where when I'm leaning on that to have my peace of heart? When that thing is upholding me, I'm doing all right. What do we situate or rest on hoping to find peace? So now I'd ask my servers here, so maybe you saw us practicing before, they're going to help me out with my homily. Get an item here. This is my shameless plug, by the way. I see all you young people. We need help. More servers. Don't you want to help out with homilies? All right, so go ahead and set it up flat facing. And so let's just go down. This is my own personal laundry list of things that perhaps rob me of my peace, that I'm leaning against for peace. All right, number 1, the NFL. Come 3:30 today, am I going to be robbed of peace? Am I leaning against Sam Darnold for my peace? All right, number 2, the Capitol in D.C. Depending on who wins, then I can be at peace. Yeah, I don't recommend that one. Next one on my laundry list of things that rob me of peace. Pleasure. Wine and cheese. Who doesn't love a good charcuterie board? Although I would say I'm more chocolate, but there you go. Whatever, brings you pleasure. I have no idea who this individual is, but I found it online. He's holding a Grammy. If I just win the award, like the disciples today, if I'm just the greatest, then I'll be at peace. People like me. Ooh, nice. All right, next up. If you heard me preach a couple weeks ago, this one will be familiar. Other people's opinions of me. This is a picture of 2 kiddos on a seesaw. If that other guy just stays on there and I get propped up, ooh, Yes. Popularity. How many likes did I get on the Insta-webs? All right, 2 more. Bear with me. Wealth. How is the Dow Jones doing? If you see the green, oof, it's going to be a good, peaceful day. All right, and last one. Power or control. It's a guy standing at the top of a pyramid. If I get to be in charge, if I'm behind the wheel, we're all good. So here are all these things. These aren't bad things. These are all actually very good things. I hope you have a charcuterie board today, that your NFL team does well unless they're the Packers. I hope that you take our country and the laws seriously. But here's what I want to say. If any of these things are what you are leaning on for your peace of mind, it might be good for a little bit, but if you lean too hard, down it goes. We had a ton of gas at the 5 o'clock. All right, servers, do you want to help me pick up the mess I made and maybe give our servers a round of applause? Thanks. You guys can take those all back there. Thank you. Here's the point. I know, a prop. You're like, of all things. If we are trying to depend on something that isn't dependable, it's going to give out. The only thing, mark my words, the only thing that will bring you lasting peace is God and His love. If God is not the thing you are leaning on for your peace, is not the thing I'm leaning on for my peace, we're setting ourselves up for failure. We're setting ourselves up, we're leaning on something that is not going to do it for us. And so here's what I want to say that peace actually is. Peace is not an absence of difficulty. People go through many, many, many struggles in their life. And I'm sure you're no stranger to that in your own. But I'm always so inspired when I meet someone going through a lot and they're cool as a cucumber. Not that they're not taking things seriously that they're going through, but they're leaning on God. Peace is not an absence of difficulty. It's not, gosh, if so-and-so would just, or if such and such a team or candidate would win, then I would feel at peace. No. Peace is Jesus in the midst of the difficulty. Peace is knowing that you are not alone in the middle of what you are going through, and that God can bring good out of anything. You hope in Him. You're leaning against something that's never, ever, ever going to give out. You are loved, and you are bound for paradise. That is true peace that cannot be shaken, that cannot be taken away by the world. It's not an absence of these other things. It's peace in the midst of difficulty. You know, like the list, I just gave you my own list. I'm sure you have. Why am I giving the keys to my emotional car to these things? Like, what? They're not good drivers. I'm giving those keys to Jesus. And that's what our second reading says today. It said the fruit of righteousness, meaning a holy life. A holy life is sown in peace. When you and I are at peace, we are like a pond that is tranquil, it's flat, and it's reflecting the sun. We can actually reflect our Creator. We can love others. We ourselves can actually receive love. But when the pond is like, there's all these waves all over the place, it's really hard to reflect. We are much better stewards when we are at peace, when we are leaning against God, when we're not leaning against things that give out. And so I just ask you to reflect on your own life. What are some of those things that I'm leaning on that are kind of causing a lack of peace in my heart? I'm going to close with just one example. And this was an example of, I was in the hospital a couple summers ago as the chaplain at North Memorial. And there was this gentleman I went to go see. And I was so blown away by this. I went to go visit him on a Friday afternoon. And I walked in the door as the chaplain. I'm like, spiritual care. Would you like a visit from the chaplain? He's like, I guess. I'm like, all right. So how's it going? All good. He basically said, I'm in for routine maintenance, if you want to put it in car terms. I'm just in getting checked out, but I can't wait to go back to the real world. I want to get out of this place. I have got money here and doing this with that. And I'm like, okay, this guy's pretty well put together. He's in his 50s. And his wife was there and his mom was there. And so, of course, what else is the chaplain going to ask? So how's your relationship with God? Do you believe in God? And he's like, religion is a great thing for society if you're into that. I was baptized Catholic, but, Buddha, Islam, Christianity, whatever. If that floats your boat, then you do it. I'm like, okay, well, I think my work here is done. I'll say a prayer for you, and we'll move on. Well, I get a call that evening from the priest at the hospital, and he's like, why didn't you call me to go see and anoint so-and-so? I'm like, what are you talking about? He said religion is just a nice thing. He's like, no. He was asking for the sacraments. He got horrible news after you left that his intestines are leaking. That man has less than a week to live. He got that news, and on that bed, he now came back to Christ, and he asked to be reconciled. He asked for confession, he asked for communion, he asked for anointing. I'm like, wow. So I got back on Monday, and he was still around, and I came into his room, and I'm not kidding you, it was a 180. You could feel the wave of peace just hit you as you walked into that room. When I walked in there on Friday, it was like money, sports, all these other things that he's leaning on. And they all gave out. And he got the worst news possible, and I walk in, and there's just this aura of peace. I'm like, I'm sorry about the diagnosis. I'm sorry. And he looked at me with a smile. And then I asked him kind of a bold question. I'm like, are you ready to die? And he looked with an even bigger smile, and he's like, you know what? I am. A week from now, I get to see my dad. I haven't seen him in 20 years, but I get to give him a hug a week from now. Total peace. All of those things that we just listed were stripped away from him. That is the worst news I could possibly come up with. Your life is literally coming to an end. And I was just so humbled. I wanted to take my shoes off or something, like holy ground. Wow. That man found peace in the midst of difficulty. That man was leaning against Jesus as he was departing this world. And so my questions for you today. We all want more peace? Here he is. What are we leaning on that may give out? And let's ask Jesus to be that strong support, to be that thing we can lean on to always make sure we are able to be at peace in our heart. I ask you to reflect on that in your own prayer and continue to lean on Christ for your peace.